as a quorum, I believe. We do have a quorum. We almost had to do a quorum call tonight, but we've got enough. And since we have enough, we're going to start our meeting and our public session, portion of our public session, and that means y'all stand up and we're going to do the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. We have been in exec session after we opened our public meeting, and now we're back, and I'm not sure I saw any modifications to the agenda. Are we sure that's correct? There's always a modification, right? Guess not. All right. So public comment period.
Ellen Sang.
Those who wish to speak, feel free.
Hi, I'm Ellen Sang. Nice to see you again. So I'm here to speak about the same thing I spoke about at the last board meeting. And I kind of want to update you on what's been happening for any of you who weren't here. But I applied for a religious exemption for my son so that he would not have to get a vaccination, and continue to attend school. And he was denied. So since then, I applied for an appeal. And along with the appeal, I requested to have my child to stay in school, and he was denied. And so in all of these weeks, so now we're going on maybe 7 weeks, he's been out of school, and because he is as brilliant as he is, he's been able to teach himself, he's been learning on his own, which is completely blows my mind, because as I said at the last meeting, I don't know if I could do that, but he continues to do this, and so I am just repeating again that all groups of students are being offered tutoring, they're being offered instruction, all groups of students, and this is the only group of students that are not getting instruction, so I'm again just requesting that he get some tutoring, get some instruction while he's out of school during this appeal session. I don't really know what they're thinking that I should be doing during this process. And I want to let you know that I do pay taxes, and when I pay taxes, it means that my son is required in education, so he's not getting that. And one of my friends mentioned to me that you guys should not pay my taxes this year. Crazy. So I also wanted to mention that a couple of us had also gone to Albany. We wanted to go to speak to our representatives, our lawmakers, and we were in contact with Barbara Lifton, Senator O'Mara, and Senator Marcelino, and we did present them with the petition and the bill that we presented to you guys, and that's Bill S6141C. And in the meantime, the chair of the senator has actually made the decision to support the bill. And so now we actually have support in the Senate to support this bill that we are encouraging all of you to support. And take a look at it if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. We're still trying to get the assembly pushed over, but that would be valuable information for you. And I also want to just remind you that 85% of the schools in New York State have the standard process already. Ithaca School District is part of the 15% that doesn't. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I thought that I've talked to a couple of you and found out that you really don't know what the process is. So I thought that it would be very important for you to know what the process is. And again, this is just Ithaca City School District, it's not the standard process. And what your process says, or how it has affected me, is that it says that, in my own words, that I need to have a very specific religion, and it needs to be within this guideline. And this guideline to me is a very strict, either Christian religion, or actually any strict religion. Christianity, Judaism is another option, but that's what I'm being told that I have to do. So this doesn't really make sense to me. I've been religious my whole life, or had spiritual practice my whole life. So for someone to say to me that my religion has to be within these confines, and unless I'm within these confines, I'm not allowed to choose for my son not to have the vaccination, is just a bit mind-blowing. But I wanted to let you know that here in Ithaca, they've decided to pull the council, which is an attorney, pull an administrator and one principal who I had on my, what they call a tribunal, to decide for me whether my religion is sincere and whether it fits this conformity to whether, whether it fits this conformity so that my son can be exempted from the vaccination. So my question to you is, do any of you in this room feel that you have that qualification to decide that this is what should determine whether my son should be vaccinated or should not be vaccinated? And I am actually happy to discuss it with anyone, because as I said, I studied this since I was born, basically, or since I could, understand what was happening. And I'm pretty sure that these three people who is making this decision for me and is judging me don't have that knowledge. And so again, I'm just asking you, does that make sense that this is how a decision is made based upon people who do not have an expertise within the, how would you say, the realm of the topic that is being discussed and decided for me? I don't know if I said that very eloquently, but I think you all get what I'm saying, right?
And you have 3 minutes, so
Okay, yeah, I think that's,
this is just public comments, not discussion.
okay. I totally know what that means, but I'll try to understand that.
There's a public
yeah, I think
comment
that's
period
it.
before every meeting. Those who wish to sign up, and anyone in the room that wishes to speak, just for everyone's knowledge, you have 3 minutes to speak on any subject that you want, but it is just public comment period before, as part of our public meeting. That's what that means. So you've had 3 minutes. Is there anything else you wish to speak
Yep,
to
just
now?
one last little thing is I just wanted to also let you know, at the last meeting, we were told that there was a request from the state sent down to the district that said that you needed to bring your numbers down. And I wanted to let you know that I did contact the Department of Education, and they told me in writing that there is no quota that has been passed down to the district. So I'm kind of in a quandary about this, and so if anyone wants to let me know what that means or clarify, because it sounds like the two are saying different things. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak right now? Students in the room that aren't always here, opportunity to speak to the board, speak to the community about your experiences at high school. I'm not seeing anyone. Very good, you're good? All right, I've made my relatives speak at this point, but you're not my relatives, you're not my nieces and nephews, so you're all good. So we'll move on. Board reps, go ahead.
Okay, so for some student council updates, many students and teachers have expressed concerns over lunch lines. There used to be 3 lunch lines, but now there's only 1. And so it takes a much longer time to actually get lunch, and it's also harder for students who do not have a lunch period to get their lunches and get back to class on time. And so midterms week is coming up January 22nd to 25th, and winter formal is also coming up February 10th at the Museum of the Earth.
That Friday, February 2nd, when we get back from midterm week and the start of the new semester happens, class meetings will be held, and basically they're just a really great opportunity for the entire class to get together and discuss upcoming events. The Link Crew Can Drive and update, we're able to raise over 1,000 cans, which are sent to people throughout the community. And there was a bit of a department competition, and the Social Studies department won and are now getting breakfast. There will be a Link Crew blood drive on February 2nd, as well as Link Crew will be hosting their annual cocoa and cram for the freshmen. And it's really great because a lot of freshmen come and we help them out with their homework, and they help each other out with their schoolwork and studying.
And also student council had a question for the board. We're wondering if the board could explain the current policy on recycling, because many students believe that the effectiveness of recycling at ICSD isn't very good currently.
Answer coming soon, perhaps. LECS, go ahead.
So we all probably know that the end of the semester is coming up, and at LACS this means that students are really getting into the swing of scheduling their next semester. So especially for lower classmen, this means picking your second semester classes, and for everyone it means picking your committees and projects. And it's a really exciting time because students get to maybe change up their schedule a little bit, learn some new things. Also, just another little side note that kind of relates to a lot of the things we've been talking about at the board the past few weeks is that the LACS water cup system has changed a little bit, and we now have mugs that we wash every day instead of the little plastic cups. And we've got a clean bin and a dirty bin, and they're right next to some of the water coolers, and it's kind of our way to kind of try and save some energy and not have to recycle or throw away a lot of plastic cups.
All right, so PBATs happened like 2 weeks ago, sometime in December. So the PBATs are the LACS replacement for our Regents exams. PBAT stands for Performance-Based Assessment Task. They're usually in the form of a presentation in front of like an assessment panel of a few people, like outside evaluators and teachers. We took an afternoon and all 11th graders presented to the middle school and high school students, like in separate classrooms, about their English papers is the one we were doing this time. They went really well. It was a successful afternoon and all the students enjoyed the experience. So it was interesting for the other students to see how the 11th graders are doing in their classes and how the learning is done at the 11th grade level. So I'm glad to say I passed my PBAT, and it was really fun, an interesting experience, and I have 3 more to do, so let's hope those are okay.
And they do them for every subject throughout this year because this is the first year that we're going to have the PBAT exams in LACS. And as a senior, I must say it's really interesting to see LACS shifting towards a way that has assessments but still adheres to LACS's alternativeness. And also at LACS, we've begun to plan our 2018 Infusion Day, or Infusion Days. And Infusion Day, for those of you who don't know, is a day or a couple days at LACS where instead of attending classes, we have workshops that surround a central theme. In the past, these themes have been things such as isms, togetherness, activism, etc., things along those lines that we can also incorporate into our classes and school community. And typically in the past, Infusion Day has been planned by the senior team, but because of a ASM proposal last year, we don't have the senior teams anymore. So instead, we've gathered a committee of people, majority students from the committees having to do with social justice in the school, such as the Students of Color Committee, GSMA, and Feminism committees that are really excited to plan the Infusion Day and also rethink the format a little bit. And we want to be able to try and incorporate the themes much more into our classes, projects, and committees. And that's definitely something we'll also be talking about more at future board meetings as well as the process continues.
So on a kind of more casual note, the ACS Shakespeare is starting their new show. It's Macbeth. They're starting casting right now. Really looking forward to this one. It's going to be really interesting. I was in Shakespeare in the past, and it's so great to see the students really like taking a leadership position in these plays. And they do such an amazing job. We've had some really great ones in the past, like Much Ado About Nothing, Romeo and Juliet, and it's really exciting to see how it all comes together in the end.
And that's it.
Right. I'm told that to use the correct name of that Scottish play is
Yeah.
bad
Yes.
luck. So,
Well, it in a theater.
okay. Well, I just anywhere. I don't know. You're tempting the Scottish gods. So thanks. Board responses to anything? Recycling, Brad?
Well,
way
not
in?
so much on recycling as that we do now have a protocol from the county on replacing the drinking fountains. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight, but the process is underway now. But remember, we have 12 school buildings, so it won't happen overnight. Some will get done during the school year this year, some will get done over the summer, and some will be into the fall of next school year before they get done. But we are moving on. We now have a process. Once they're in, they've got to be tested, then they can be used. used, but we're headed in the right direction to get those done. So we're going to get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Not dramatic, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. So that's underway.
And I wish Sean were here to speak to, you asked about a policy on recycling. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we have a policy.
No, and I'm not sure what it is. It said effectiveness of recycling. Are we talking about compliance on the part of the students? Are we talking about?
Oh, there's Paul.
Oh, Paul, but I want to know what the question really was first. What,
So
please?
basically, we were just trying to word it a bit nicer, but a lot of students and as well teachers have circulated a rumor that the school doesn't recycle at all.
Well, that's been a rumor off and on for years now, because the bags go out to the same loading dock, and so the assumption is because they go to the same loading dock, they go to the same place, and that's not the case. Paul, if you want to speak to where they go.
We follow all the guidelines of the county. We actually take everything up to TSD BOCES and separate out. The reason we do that is we separate out the cardboard because the district does see revenue from the cardboard.
So we do that separately.
But yeah, every site, and we have cans and that are available for any site. And if there's any additional sites within the high school or any elementary or middle school or LICS, we have those available if we need additional ones. But we definitely recycle them. Our grounds crew could attest to that because they spend 2 to 3 days a week running recycling. So we're actually doing a pretty good job.
Perhaps a rumor dispelled. Not sure about the lines going from 3 to 1 at the cafeteria. That sounds like,
We'll have to ask.
I think we'll have to dig into that a little bit, see what's going on.
It is long, and I know the folks at high school are working on it.
We'll see what, yeah, all right. And then the other thing is, on the vaccination
Right.
issue, there is going to be a policy committee meeting. What's the date of that?
18th.
The 18th, and that'll be part of the discussion there. There are 2 policies related to the vaccinations, and they'll be discussed at the meeting on the 18th because they're part of the 5,000 series, and you are.
We are
All the
delving
way to
into
the
the
5,000
5,000
series.
series, and that will be 5:30 p.m. on the 18th. It will not discuss cases of individual students. It will be looking at policies that affect all students in the districts, and everything we do will be in compliance with New York State law, as we are legally bound to do.
So but that'll be on the 18th, and we've moved that up to be the first item on the 5,000 series to be discussed, so.
That is a work session, so that's a more informal opportunity to discuss the topic rather than in this venue at this time. But that is really where the work is done within the district. Board members are there, administrators are there. We have a wide-ranging discussion on a variety of issues: facilities, finance, HR. What are the others? Curriculum. Audit. Did I miss one?
Legislative advocacy.
See, I didn't do that one because I can't say that one. So that does not.
Yeah, which is said
LAC.
too, if you want to bring up the issue of laws that you're interested in, that would be the appropriate place for laws that are related to, say, New York State, as opposed to policy, which is more localized for what the policies are within the district.
Right, and all those meetings have a public comment period, but it's not, that's, work session is beyond a public comment period. That's an opportunity to hear from administrators, the district physicians, the other forces at play. That's where we get into the nuts and bolts of what it takes to make the district run every day. So that's an opportunity at 5:30 in this room. And that's a Thursday, not a Tuesday,
Yeah,
that's a Thursday.
It is not part of the regular
To that point.
working group schedule, just because we were unable to fit that in at the beginning of the month.
So that's, we'll work on it we will work on that then, if I can even say that. So anything else for the good of the questions asked today? So we'll move on. Consent agenda.
I'll move the consent as presented.
Second.
Second by Chris. Any questions, any comments? Are we good? We still have a quorum. Chris is still here. All in favor?
Holding strong.
That's everyone. We are missing 3, so we are 6. And then there was Dr. Brown.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just one quick item tonight. I wish to plug an event that many of us have gone to each year, but I want to plug it yet again. It's the Saturday, GIAC is hosting the community breakfast. And this year, Shirley Collado, the new president of IC, is going to be the speaker. But every year, our young people are performing. And it's always great. So I don't know, it's never really in the promo materials how well our young people are participating and performing, but it will be at the BJM W.J. Martin
Thank you.
Gymnasium on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And I hope to see a lot of folks there, including some of the students in the room. Thank you.
It is well attended.
It is well attended.
So there is food.
There's good food.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
And right on to school district business, and we're very pleased to have Boynton Middle School, and Jeff Tomasic is going to talk to us.
Come on up, Jeff.
Oh yeah, definitely. You don't have to stand in the back.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Right.
And you're all alone.
All alone, yes.
And you're the only school up tonight.
You may have some of your past students behind you from somewhere, but
Maybe as some background for the young people in the room. At each meeting over the last, what, has it been 3-4 months now? We've had a school principal or 2 come in and share some highlights from their school building, some of the work that they're doing. And they're answering a key question that we've been asking, why school? And each principal and department leader have been answering that question from their schools or department's perspective. So now we have Boynton here and a seasoned principal.
A little old.
Mr. Tomasic, whichever of you.
So thank you so much for inviting me. I just had so much to share about the school, so I whittled it down to about 9 bullet points. Then I was thinking more about it. I thought that 9 might be a little bit too much for me to go over in great depth. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight 1 from each of the couple areas. But you can see all 9 bullet points or so. So if you have any questions about the things that I'm not explicitly addressing in my brief talk, I'd be more than happy to answer them during the Q&A. So, all right. So Boynton Middle School, what we're about, like, we're not just about preparing, we are about preparing great thinkers, but we're also about preparing great people. Okay, so we're more than just producing widgets in a factory. When we want kids to come out not only as great thinkers, but with great hearts and great souls and great minds. So I'm going to highlight some of our work. Under teaching and learning innovations, I'm going to talk briefly about our school-wide social emotional curriculum. It's called Second Step. It's something that originally started in elementary schools and something that we used on and off at Northeast Elementary School. But I and the staff really thought that the students really to create that safe space so when everyone comes to school, they feel affirmed, they feel like they're in a calm, supportive, safe environment, that we as a school needed to explicitly teach kids some social emotional skills. So some of the things that are addressed in the curriculum include how to validate viewpoints that are different from your own, how to be a bystander, how not to be a bystander, but how to be an upstander if you're seeing bullying at school, how to tell if your friendships are healthy friendships or are those friendships sometimes veering into not being so healthy. These are really important things for that all people, and especially middle school students, sometimes struggle with. And some other things addressed: what to do when you're upset. How can you bring yourself kind of to a little bit calmer space? And I think we've always taught these things to kids, but unfortunately sometimes we would teach those things after there was some sort of issue or problem or conflict, and we felt like this was a much more proactive approach. And one of the challenges with this program is our schedule is really tight, and each teacher is really committed to making sure they teach their content really well and the thinking skills associated with this. But they felt like this was an important enough program that they all, quote, gave up a few of their content periods to spend some time to address the social emotional needs of kids. I really think over these last couple of years, like if I encourage you to come in the building, and this isn't the only reason we have a great environment, because really, if you have this program but you don't have those great relationships with kids and that ongoing work to connect with all kids, like this program isn't going to work. But I think coupled with our staff's dedication to build those relationships and explicitly teaching some of these social emotional skills, I think this has been a great thing for our school. Next, I want to move on to some of our new positive approaches to discipline. The first year at Boynton, we had an in-school suspension room, and frankly, I don't think it was effective. So after my first year, we got rid of that. And we have a much more positive, proactive approach to discipline. And actually, second step is a big part of it, again, because we're actually creating a climate and teaching the skills, and we have great instruction, so our discipline problems are a lot less to begin with. But if there is something, this is, we have 520 kids, age 12 to 14, coming to our school every morning, happy, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, lots of energy, lots of strong opinions. So sometimes there's definitely disagreements, and sometimes there's things that we need to talk about. But we're doing it now in a much more positive, proactive way. So what we do, and it's usually a teacher. I don't actually need to do a lot of discipline, knock on wood, because the teachers really take the lead. And they sit down with the kid. We have a reflection sheet they fill out about like what the incident was about, what maybe they could have done, how they could have maybe handled themselves a little bit differently. And then they also talk about, okay, so how are we going to write this, whatever he or she did has created some little imbalance in the school community. So what can he or she do in concert with the teacher to kind of restore that balance? It could be something as simple as an apology letter. It could be actually an apology of action, where they're doing something in school to make it right. It also might be community service in the school. And I think, again, it's had a great impact on the climate. Related to that, one of our book studies this year is on the explosive child lost at school by Ross Green. And in that book, it really it's allowed our staff to sort of learn more strategies to deal with some of, frankly, kids who sometimes come to school and have a hard time keeping it together. But we've really flipped it so that instead of discipline being like done to those kids, it's a much more collaborative approach. So and it really starts from the premise, and the way my staff and I approach it is that kids at Boynton, they're all doing well. Those who aren't doing well, they wish they were doing well, and they do well if they can. All right, so no kid who's struggling, they don't come there. Some of the, they just don't want to do well, or they're just trying to manipulate to get out of. We don't buy that at Boynton. We know they all want to do well, and if they're not, it's up to us, and by us I mean me and the teachers and the staff, to work with the kid to collaboratively problem solve. And usually what we find out is that there's very specific skills that a child might be lacking, or a need that's not being met. And this is a new approach for us this year, and I'm going to give you just one tiny example of actually a meeting I was in with today. And a big part of the approach is not rushing to judgment, right? Not assuming that you know why the child might be having a tough time. It's more about really listening, getting the kid's perspective, So I was in this and so there was a teacher who was willing to try this new approach. He's like, well, I'm not really sure, it's kind of different. And I'm like, well, how about if I do it with you? So we sat down together with the kid and, basically said, hey, when this happens in the classroom, we notice that sometimes you do this. And then we basically said, what's up with that? Not almost those exact words, like, what's up? Did it in a way that was very, non-threatening, but asking him to think about, and he was able to identify like what was going on in his brain, and and part of this is there's this empathy step where even if you know that what that kid's thinking needs to be validated, even if it's not working for him or her in the classroom, you first at least have to validate it. And then the next step is the teacher says, well, when I see you doing this, here's what it brings up for me, and here's why I'm wishing we can figure out something else. So after the kid does his step, the teacher does her step, his or her step, then the teacher leads the kid through, okay, so where, let's find a solution. And instead of the teacher or the principal imposing a solution, well, if this happens again, I need you to just do da-da-da-da-da, we have the kid generate solutions. It's time consuming, but it works. So this specific approach is new this year, but I think it really fits right into the positive approach to discipline we've been building the last few years since I joined the school. All right, so the last thing I wanted, so I'm going to skip down again. Happy to answer any of these questions about any of these bulletin points in the Q&A. I'm going to skip down to just a few of our community partnerships. We have a really diverse student body at Boynton, and we need community partners to meet their needs. We can't do it all alone. I'm just going to highlight a few of these. Some of these may be already familiar to you, but there's probably some that might be new. One of our newest community partnerships is a recent partnership with Southside Community Center. And we were working with this one actually with Dr. Nia Nunn. And what she did is she set up a structure for us. And it was actually, so really it was her idea, we implemented it. And actually what it involved was us gathering together our students of color, and they just had a chance to do some writing and reflection and expression around what's it mean to be African American in Tompkins County in 2017. And so it was an idea that originated from them, implemented by Boynton staff, and then their writing and reflections and artwork were presented at a Kwanzaa celebration there over the holiday break. And the work those kids did at that day of writing and reflection, we're actually using that to help plan our Black History Day, which we do every February. So I'm excited about that partnership and looking forward to doing more with Southside. Another partnership I just wanted to highlight because it's been there for a few years, but I think we've really strengthened it, is the Rural Youth Services Program. This program has served over 50 kids this year. Their primary target audiences are Danby, Enfield, and Town of Ithaca. But one thing I love about this program, that's their funding stream, so they have to kind of go after those kids and try and get them involved in the program. But whether you're from those areas or not, they always let you join the program. So they've done things like fishing expeditions, animal exploration, wilderness hikes. They do stuff right at the school. They do cooking classes during lunch. So again, it's just another partnership where some of our rural youth are getting served right in the school. Last thing I want to mention, we're working very hard to have students revitalize the outside appearance of our building. So over the last couple of years, we had students build a garden right in the front of the school. You may have seen if you had a chance to come in. Then last year, we had students in the technology class build these beautiful cedar flower planter boxes that have been engraved, and we have, not now because it's too darn cold, but we have them out for in the fall, summer, and spring. And now we're actually planning a mural project where all the students, we're going to use a Google form and have them generate ideas in terms of, I want the mural to just be very welcoming, saying like, hey, no matter where you're from, we're glad you're here, welcome all. So we're having kids through a simple Google form, like if that's the theme, what are some ideas for some images that might be able to convey that? And we're going to have that, and that's going to be a collaboration with technology students, art students, because the technology students are going to build the scaffolding and frame. So when you come to Boynton at the end of the spring, hopefully you'll see a big new beautiful mural to replace the one that we have now. Again, short and sweet. I'm really glad I'm there. I get to interact with 510 kids. It's never boring. Coming down from Northeast, it's just been a great. I mean, I loved it up there, but this is really, it's given me an invigoration and challenge. So thank you.
Questions, comments? Go ahead.
Well, a lot of this sounds great, but I'm particularly interested in a second step program because
Sure.
I'm chair of the curriculum committee, and that's something that we've been talking about, and talking a little bit about what's happening in the various schools to address, social emotional learning. So just, can you give me a little bit more detail about the logistics of it?
Sure, like how we implement it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so our schedule currently is fairly traditional. We have 8 40-minute a day periods. Again, the challenge is, like, we don't have a class called social emotional learning, or, I think it might be good if we did. But I got together with my staff and said, like, how can we make this work? And basically, like, well, I'm the math teacher, I'm the science teacher, I'm the social studies, I'm the English teacher. If we all give up 3 of our regular lessons, and like this week, social studies is going to give up a social studies lesson and do a second step lesson, and maybe they'll do that for 3 weeks. And then after those 3 weeks, then maybe, okay, it's the science teacher's turn to give up a few of their content lessons, and the way the program is set, in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the lesson is different, but the underlying theme is usually the same. So if it's calming down when you're upset, like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade all gets a lesson on that underlying theme. So basically we did it by stealing a little time out of the content areas, is what we did. There's other ways you could do it. I mean, you could shorten every period, and then maybe for the first half hour every Monday and Wednesday, you're going to teach that lesson. But frankly, one of the reasons we didn't do that is some of the even though it's a fairly user-friendly program, some of the teachers were concerned that that was like, well, I'm already teaching 3 different math classes on that day, and now I'm going to have to teach a 4th social emotional class that I'm not that. So it was really easier for them to just say, okay, this one day I'm not going to do my math lesson at all. I'm just going to get really well versed and how to be an upstander for bullying and teach that lesson.
Good. And in terms of that or any of the other initiatives you talked about, are there supports that you need? Issues about how to make these things work better,
right,
that you or your staff need?
I feel, no place is perfect, but can I say, all these things are things that Dr. Brown, they want to have these things happen. So I don't feel like I have major barriers. I mean, I think they're all going to take time to be come to their full fruition. But frankly, when I look at any of these things, I think, frankly, I think given my current level of resources in the school and current level of staff, I don't think that's a barrier for any of these to happening. I think it's just continuing to grow people's capacity, and I think I've got most of my teachers on board with most of these, and that's really my work for me to do. But I frankly think with the current resources I have and then the staff I have, that's not a barrier for any of these.
Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, I'm also kind of really excited to hear about the second step, and that's kind of almost seems like it's a grounding for the rest of the curriculum, and I just wonder how the students are responding to.
I think one of the things that so we're so the current one they use is the 2008 curriculum. And they just came out with an all-digital one. So the one we're using now is sort of CD-ROMs and a binder. And I would say the general comment the kids say is, I'm really glad we're learning this stuff, but his hair and clothes look a little funny. Even though they're only 7 or 8 years old, but the way the way the kids look and their haircuts of. In terms of any criticisms or comments they've had of the curriculum, I think another thing why the kids have responded well, some of the teachers have looked at the lesson, looked at the essential, what's the essential learning for this lesson, and especially in a place like social studies or English, there's really, probably in all subjects, there's really a lot of opportunities to be talking about perspective taking, who has power, who doesn't have power, do you have empathy for this character or not? Why don't you have empathy? What could this character... So I think the teachers have done a really nice job of, it's not just this separate thing that comes in from the outside, but they're sort of embedding it into their already existing programs.
Beyond the digital, there's an opportunity to talk about.
Excuse what?
Beyond the digital, there's an opportunity to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. To the point. Go ahead, Brett.
Hi, Brett.
How are you?
Good.
Tell me a little bit about parent involvement and how you're working on parent involvement in the school.
Yeah, I think our project-based learning initiatives have been really, really successful at drawing more parents into the school. I think there's sort of this traditional notion that when kids go to middle school, all of a sudden there's this huge drop-off and parent involvement and whatnot. And I think if you dig a little more, I think the kids do want, they might not admit it so for sure, but students are generally still real happy to have their parents involved. So our project-based learning initiatives, they all have a celebration component. So we just had our night at the museum one just a week or two before break, and we had 6th grade parents come in. We had, and they wanted, and if they're set up where the students are presenting something and showing what they've learned, we're getting tons of parents. And so the project-based learning initiatives with the celebration of learning at the end or a public display of what the kids have learned. Have really drawn in tons of parents. So that's really, really been successful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pat?
I'm good, thanks.
As a farm kid from Enfield that went to Boynton a long time ago, I was happy to hear that you are doing some outreach for the rural youth, rural parents. How is there more that can be done? Obviously, there's more that can be done.
Yeah.
I
think there's always
how
more.
involved are the rural kids and the rural parents really in the fabric of Boynton these days?
I think the kids are very involved. I think there's still more work to be done with some of the families. I think the families are always very happy to collaborate, but I really don't feel like I have them knocking down my door as much as I'd like to say how could I be involved. So I think now it's really incumbent on me more to go out. So one of the ideas I had was to actually start going to Enfield PTA meetings and just to really kind of build a little bridges that way. So I think that's an area that needs to be worked on, frankly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of folks historically, Enfield, parts of Danby, certainly Enfield. There's a few valleys between here and there, and there's a lot of folks that really don't feel like they're a part of the district. The city of Ithaca, frankly Cornell, really the school is just so distant. They may shop in Trumansburg or run somewhere that way,
Right.
rather than come all the way down into town. So really trying to make sure there's outgoing efforts to make sure, yes, Enfield, Wilseyville, you are part of this district, and those are nice places to live out there, and I appreciate your outreach to Southside, right, and that's another feeder for Boynton, and we are a wide-ranging district, and really it's incumbent on us to make sure that parents and students feel that, yeah, Boynton's my school.
Right.
Of course, I still say Boynton's my junior high, right? Ithaca High's my Ithaca High. But, right, so there's got to be, certainly appreciate your efforts that way. Can we teach adults social and emotional skills? I've been thinking about that a lot lately. But what else was there? The new ENL program?
Oh, yeah.
Just, if we could talk about new stuff, just highlight that before you take off.
Sure, yeah. I'm really happy now that this is the first year that, because in previous years, if you were a student learning English and you were zoned for Boynton, you would have to go to DeWitt, because that's where the ENL program was. Nothing against DeWitt, they do a great job. But I want that language and cultural diversity at my school. I want the kids in their neighborhood to be at their neighborhood school, and now we have that. So we have a small but growing ENL program. We have some professional development lined up for teachers, because that's a new thing for many of them, where they'll be working with kids who are learning English. So I'm just really glad that we now have that program at Boynton. I'm a former ENL teacher myself. Back in the day, it used to be called ESL back then. Yeah, so I'm just really glad to have that program at Boynton now.
Outstanding. And we typically, some of us ask, well, do you need anything? Moira already did that. So apparently, you don't need anything. You have what you need, and you're doing so Boynton is ready.
All the right children.
Ready. You have all the right children. You're ready to rock. So, Dr. Brown, I guess we don't have to worry about Boynton.
Not with Jeff.
Anything else for Jeff before we let him go home, so he can do what you do so well tomorrow?
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Ann, are we up for
Yes.
update regarding initiatives that came out of last legislative
Yes, at
advocacy
the
committee,
last-
which I just said, hopefully.
Say it 5 times faster.
Yeah, I know, I can't.
But in the Legislative Advocacy Committee, one of the main topics of discussion there was see whether or not the board should take a position on the expansion proposal, proposal to expand. So we would like as a committee to recommend to the board as a whole to ask the board that we might prepare a statement in opposition to the New Routes expansion. So we were hoping to get the permission that the board would work on that with our council. So there were a couple of issues that came about, and one was the issue of it being basically an unfunded mandate. That when New Routes was first established, there was no tax cap, and now there is a tax cap, so it makes it difficult to raise those monies. Also, since New Routes was first established, there's been years of flat foundation aid from the state. And ultimately, it costs money, in fact, $1 million a year to support New Routes that goes from the district directly to New Routes, and should this expand to a middle school, it could be as much as $1.5 million per year. To which the
Or
local,
more.
or more.
Way more.
That the local taxpayer has no opportunity to weigh in. So it is decided at the Albany level for something that really should be something that's under local control. And then the other issue really has to do with the performance of the current new routes. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Well, I mean, one of the things they're saying is they're going to do better than the Ithaca schools, which is what they said they were going to do when they started the high school. They never have. They've done better. They don't have as good a graduation rate. They don't do as well on the state tests. Now they claim they're going to do the same on the middle school, that they're going to do better than our middle schools. And that's LICS and DeWitt and Point. So, you know, they've not delivered, they've not been accountable for it. And as Ian mentioned, this is, and I want to make it clear to people listening at home, we have nothing to do with the approval. This is a state issue. We're having a public hearing next week because the law requires us as the host school district to have a public hearing, another lovely mandate on their part of the state, but we have to host that public hearing. But we can do nothing about it. So we're merely a collector of information, pro and con. And Jen, our clerk, will transmit pro and con whatever we receive. People are here to speak, or people submit things in writing. And they can submit things in writing up till what date?
I said until Friday the 19th.
Until Friday the 19th. For this Friday.
It is not a Board of Education meeting. We do not have a quorum. We do not
Right.
vote on anything.
Don't vote on
It is
anything.
not,
It'll just be a hearing to take information.
Apparently, I have to be here to run the meeting and open it and close it because I get, well, I can't say I get paid more to do that because,
Multiply zero by any
yeah,
number,
exactly.
it's still the same.
But it's another night out. It is, it will be January 17th at 6 p.m. in this room. And all are welcome to come and speak in any way that you wish. But those comments will be forwarded on to New York State SUNY Board of...
It's CSI, what are they?
Charter School
Institute. And then it then goes to the SUNY Board of Trustees from there. But let's remember that CSI is a bureaucracy created to oversee charter schools. So if they don't approve charter schools, they have nothing to do. So there's an incredible pressure on them to approve anything so that there's more. And of course, the more there are, then the more bureaucrats we have to have. So it's a self-fulfilling system.
And of course, they're very interested in having charter schools that are north of New York City and somewhere north or south of the Thruway.
They'd like, yeah, this is one of 3 or 4,
Right.
other than the city of Albany. So I'd move that the board empower the Legislative Advocacy Committee in conjunction with council to draft a statement on behalf of the board
Second.
in opposition to the New Roots middle school expansion, to be specific.
And just one process question. We have, after the hearing, we were hoping to then vote on that letter. We have 2 weeks, Jennifer, after the hearing?
15 days.
What's that?
15 days.
15 days that we can still submit that letter.
So it'll be our next meeting.
So at the next meeting, we would have a letter that the board could vote up or down, and that we vote on that, and then that would go to the institute. Just another comment.
And language will be created. We'll have an opportunity to review it.
Yes.
And discuss at the next meeting. And what you need now is a vote of a majority of the board, which is 9. And you need to have, we are sitting quorum right now. So so we certainly can take a vote on an action tonight. For those who are keeping track of notes of how you run a meeting. So everything that we're doing is well within the state law. Pat, I mean, gets opportunity to speak to the
I
issue.
think just another point that I brought up in the Legislative Action Committee and we'll bring up again in addition to Ann's and Brad's comments was that the charter schools are in fact required by New York State law to outperform their school of where they're located. And it has rankled me since the inception of the charter schools laws that New York State does not regulate, they do not oversee, they do not enforce their laws. New York State has simply abrogated any oversight of this use of taxpayer money, and I am deeply offended by the actions of New York State, the Department of Education, and the Charter Schools Institute. I think they make a mockery of law. So, if you're wondering how I'm going to vote,
Well, Pat, we're always happy when you have opinions on something. Yeah, exactly. It's always nice when you say Pat's on fire, but you're keeping it coming. Obviously tonight we're just taking a vote just to get the process going. It's probably already, I'm not sure.
It's underway.
Obviously, conversation, I think I was part of the conversation at LAC, and so that's, if you need anything else right now, other than a vote.
Seconded.
Move seconded, all in favor, that's everyone, so that does pass 5 votes and 4 absences. So good. So look forward to seeing what that looks like.
I will move the appointment of Ann Reichland as the Ithaca City School District's NYSBA Advocacy Liaison.
second.
Second by Pat, and it would be great to know what that is. No, there's a long list of, and this is just...
It's kind of a formality, but it becomes, I'll be the point person to NYSBA when they send their, call to, write your representative, call, just to kind of let people know and to kind of pay attention to the stuff that comes down the wire.
So we are just etching in stone what you do already.
Right.
Okay, all right. And you were appointed last year, I believe, correct? So I think this is fine. And you are our advocate, that's for sure. Move seconded, all in favor? That's everyone. Moira did hesitate a bit, so I just want for the folks at home, there was some hesitation. Did you want it, Moira?
Yeah, that was it. I had to get over my sour grapes. It took a second.
We did not open it up for alternative candidates, Brad. That's probably my fault. Those of you who are here to see what a real school board meeting is like, we are probably going to end up a little earlier than we usually do. But we're not done yet, so you can't leave yet, and because you need to get your stuff signed. Any other discussion items by the small group that always shows up? Typically, we are all here. It's the folks are out of town and doing various things. It's still January, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Dr. Brown, do you? Dr. Brown, you had like one sentence that you did tonight. I mean, anything for the group? You want to talk, anything you need to share with the kids or anything?
Too long out of football last night.
I didn't go to Georgia or Alabama. I'm fine. Upcoming dates, we talked about the New Roots hearing on January 17th, which is next week. What else do we have?
Policy committee next Thursday.
So that's the 18th. That's going to be the policies. I'm going to talk about the 2 policies that are associated or affiliated or speak to immunization within the district.
Finance Committee's Tuesday.
Right. So Tuesday, regular schedule, HR and finance. Are you all doing combined HR and finance yet? I mean,
We are not this time.
right. Okay. At some point, there was talk about that.
We did one.
Okay.
We may do another.
Okay, but not consistently.
Not
so.
consistently.
Oh, and we also have a Human Resources Committee meeting next Tuesday.
Tuesday, yep.
And at 5:30.
5:30.
And then finances.
Right.
6:30.
Yeah, normal. All right, well, I can't waste any more time. I have things to go do as well. That Dr. Brown's not going to do tonight because you're just not in shape to do that. That's all right. Anything else for the good of the group? Without objection, we are adjourned. Got 8:15.
Wow. That was the quickest meeting I've ever had.